Have you sent your kids back to school? Are you worried about COVID-19? Well, today we have a good show for you. Hi, friends. In this week's episode of the Mom Stuff Coffee Shop, I sit down with two educators, seasoned educators from Miami Dade, Florida. One happens to be my father, and the other one is his lovely wife. They sit down with us and tell us about the panic of COVID-19 and what can we do in this season of uncertainty. You want to listen to this one? It's going to be a good one. So let's get started. So thank you all for joining us today inside the Mom Stuff Coffee Shop. We are here with former educator of 31 years, Talmadge Frazier, and current school counselor, Jeannie Frazier. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're here today to talk about the panic of COVID-19 and children going back to school during COVID-19. And what are some of the things that we could do to settle our nerves as parents? What are some of the things that we can do for the children for them to have a better outcome this year in school? So, different age groups. Our children range from almost 30 years old down to 10 years old. So I understand your expertise in these fields. And as a parent, now we have a high schooler and also an elementary school student. I have sheer panic attacks just thinking about COVID-19 and also kids going back to school in this unknown virus, this invisible virus. So the first question I have for you is, how can parents feel safe sending their children back to school during COVID-19? Because as we know, some parents don't have the choice of leaving their kids home. They have to go to work. There's no one to keep them. So how can parents feel safe in sending their children back to school during COVID-19?
First of all, the way that our school system has set up and prepared for COVID-19 is that we're following the CDC guidelines and we're going through different phases. So we're in phase one where we don't have a grasp of the virus. We don't have a cure as of yet or vaccination. So what we're doing is we're doing a face-to-face model through virtual learning. So our virtual learning will take place all of phase one, where the children will experience online learning with their teachers and they will be educated that way. Then we're going to move to phase two. Phase two is, there'll be face-to-face at the schoolhouse as well as doing virtual learning some days. So they're going to be schoolhouse and on the computer at home. And then our third phase will take them into the actual schoolhouse, back to their daily routine once we've come up with a vaccination and everything is safe. I think the schools are doing their best to keep the children safe as we move through this pandemic.
In my experience with children, I believe that it's unsafe to send the children back to school until we have a vaccine. Young people, as well as high schoolers, kindergarten, are not going to keep the mask on. Secondary kids are not going to keep the mask on. It's been shown in the last information we've gotten from the federal government that a 10-year-old child may not come down and get sick, but can transfer that virus 10 times greater. I think it should be a waiting period. I understand that the children would have to have learning activity, but they're not going to sit there all day long. Like we're doing in a normal school year, when they have breaks for music, breaks for art, breaks for PE. I think that the school day should be shortened, or maybe breaking up into 2-hour blocks. And I think would better serve the child and better serve the children. If they go back to whole day program, it's going to put a strain on security staff. So we have to make sure that children keep their masks on both in the classroom and out of the classroom. I really believe there should be a waiting period until we have a vaccine after the first of the year.
One of my major concerns, how in the world are kids going to keep their hands clean for those 8 hours, how are they not going to touch surfaces that other children have touched? As we know, there are so many microorganisms, not only in the air, but also on surfaces, backpacks, tables, the teachers' tables. You could be passing out papers to children, and one child takes it and the other child takes it, and there you have a transfer of the virus. So I did think that going back to school was kind of uncertain because of the transfer of COVID-19. And as we all know, it is an airborne. It's not necessarily a droplet precaution, but it's an airborne, which means that the particles are so small they linger in the air. Thank you all for answering that question. The next question I have is, what are some tips for cabin fever, being stuck at home for children and parents, for learning as well as overall mental health? So we know back in March, when they had an order to close airports, to close different entities, children started to become anxious because they could no longer be with their friends. They could no longer interact personally. And for me, with my daughter, I know she and her best friend, they're on the phone all the time. They're on the computer all the time. They wake up with their routine to brush their teeth, comb their hair. And this is something that they weren't doing before. So I know that it caused so much anxiety just not to be up close and personal with your friends, especially if you're a little social butterfly. So what are some of the tips that you would give parents for cabin fever, for children that are social, and also for children that aren't so social, but we need that human touch, that mental interaction?
The point I would give parents is to have a sit-down meeting with your children. Explain to them exactly what's happening and the danger why we're doing it to keep them alive. Also, I would do different activities with the child. Your backyard can be turned into a playground. Short movies that last maybe 30 or 40 minutes to relax themselves. We've gotten away from family dinners. Mm-hmm. We've gotten away from sitting down talking to each other. Mm-hmm. We understand that you can't be with your friends right now, but your friends also want to be with you. We understand all this. However, let's get together close as a family. We're not trying to replace your relationship with your friends, but we're trying to make our family closer by doing more family activity. When the last time you sat down with a kid and played a checker game? Or do you even know how to play checkers anymore? You know, do some more fun things. Go back a little we used to do. You know, kids don't use hand things to play things with. Do arts and crafts with them. Show them how to build little different things. Find out what a child, well, my daughter wants to be a nurse. Okay, let's put together a makeshift hospital. How would you handle this patient? And teach them some things in that nature.
That's a great idea.
I like what you said about going back to the old things. And I think through this pandemic, we learn out of every bad situation, something good comes out of it. So maybe this is the good that come out of it, where our children have learned to just be on the computer or be on their cell phone. Now we're back to family and playing old-fashioned games and forcing our kids to be more creative in their game playing. Like we used to go outside and make mud pies and let them bake in the sun and play on our scooters. These are the things that now kids can now experience. And this is the good that's coming out of it. Yeah. They get to exercise. Give them some quiet time. Let them learn to cook. Maybe show them how to cook some different meals. Also, meditation, yoga. Those are the things that we need to get back to. So I feel like the good out of this pandemic, and while we're at home, creativity is sparked. And I like that. That will help our children grow, and help them to become more family oriented and more together than they are now. They are on the lives, and they're on YouTube, and they're on all types of social media, and they're exposed to the world. And then sometimes we forget about those around us. So we have now a chance to do things at home.
Yes. So for us, I know that we were able to, like you say, bond a lot more. And also, one great thing I think about online learning is parents are able to identify their child's learning curves. Before, maybe you set up a teacher conference, maybe you didn't. Maybe you went out to the school, maybe you didn't. But now, online, you're able to see, okay, Mom, I need help with this, I need help with that. Right. Where before, children might not have asked for help. They might have just thrown it under the rug, and then you wonder why little Ray or little Johnny has gotten a D or a C, and now they're more up close and personal where you can see those learning gaps. So I think some good has come out of online learning at being at home, being connected to family, being able to see your child's up close day-to-day results. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was a lot of children might not get extra support after school for tutoring. I understand this in so many levels because there are children that are walking home from school sometimes. Sometimes their parents don't get home until well after their bedtime. Sometimes there are children that are just operating in panic mode, nothing to eat at night. There are situations where children don't get the academic help they need, but they only get the resources while they're in school. So while we're in COVID-19, what are some of the sites you recommend for tutoring or support? Can children get face-to-face tutoring in our country, in our cities, throughout the world during COVID-19 like they haven't accessed before?
Well, due to the risk of catching COVID-19 in our new world, our new norm, face-to-face is pretty much limited. So we have to depend on virtual learning basically for everything. So there are millions of online learning websites. One big one we have in Miami Dade County School, which is free, is called Khan Academy. Sylvan is a big one, Math 1, 2, 3. But you can also go to the Florida Department of Education. They have thousands of resources for parents. Get some resources that you're needing, because I know as a parent, it's not new anymore, but it was thrown on us. It was thrown on the teachers. It was thrown on the parents. And we're with our hands raised like, where do we go? I need help. I'm as a school counselor, I've had calls with parents who are having major breakdowns because they don't know what to do. They haven't worked with their child only on the homework level, but not just the entire trying to work. And I think one good thing that Dade County Schools is doing is they're putting everyone K through 12 on one learning platform. So now parents know where they have to go. It also comes with so much support and resources. And again, I just say go to the Florida Department of Ed if that's not your choice. My School Online, if that's not what your county is doing, to just gather some resources. And also 211?
Children's Trust. Yes, Mrs. Fraser. I'm glad you brought up Children's Trust. Children's Trust is sponsored in Dade County to help parents find help if need for your child. Look at your universities. A lot of students going to need extra money, and they can get a list through Children's Trust, perhaps, of the kids that are willing to tutor their children. Look in your own families. Find someone in the family that has the skills that need to be tutored. Look, you got to start being creative and look for resources. And that's one of the ways. Find your retired teacher that maybe want to put in some time tutoring the children online after school program. So that's one idea.
Yeah, because I think tutoring and support is so important. Because I can remember when the pandemic first started and we were trying to teach our little one about online learning, and it just felt like things were just flying at us. I'm talking about papers, assignments, and the teacher, her particular teacher, also had small kids at home that she was trying to manage. So a lot of times I think parents need to also understand the perspective of the educator as well. Yes, they're supposed to have everything together, but this is new to them as well. especially when you're home, you're managing your own children and you're trying to manage your classroom. And some classrooms are upwards of 18 or more students. So that's something for all of us to get used to. So thank you all for those resources. Another question I want to talk about was, how do you calm down and maintain your mental health as a school counselor during these uncertain times, and also as an educator?
As a school counselor, I had to learn some just strategies. Like we said, everything has been thrown on you. So you just have to I kind of just fell back, started doing some self-care. Believe it or not, helping others through their stressful times also helps relieve stress for me. I have established a counselor collaboration group where we get on Zoom and we meet every Wednesday and we vent, we share our feelings, we counsel each other. We talk about what's coming. We talk about the uncertainty of these times. We talk about everything, and it's kind of a healing thing for us to get through. I also think that you should take breaks from the news. I recall just hearing the numbers going up. This week we have these many cases, and the next week it's even higher. So I think sometimes you have to just shut it down and take a deep breath and step away from the news or listening to those reports, because your mental state gets a little shaky then, because it kind of creates anxiety and you're wondering what in the world and who am I next to and who has it and who don't. So sometimes you got to disconnect, take care of your body, exercise, eat healthy, and then also eat badly. Sometimes bake a cake. Comfort food.
Yes.
Right. You have to unwind. You have to take a little short trip like we're doing. We just do different things to just kind of keep our mind and mental state together.
One thing I think we could do more of to help each other through this time, talking to your children, having family groups. Miss Fraser does something in her school, which is have breakfast or lunch bunnies. One night at night, sit around the table, play Uno with each other and talk to your children. The talking brings out a whole lot. And you find out a world of things you had no idea what was going on if you sit down to the table and talk to them. And do little activities with them. Nothing can cost you a whole lot of money. A pizza night. You put a blanket on the floor. Everybody sit on the floor, get a slice of pizza. Watch a movie.
Or 3 slices.
Or 3 slices, whatever, talk about your family history. Most children need to know their family history.
Yes.
It gives them more family involvement activity. If there's a problem that you haven't learning, Mama, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Parents, you got to talk to your children. And that's what the key thing. It's in our frustration. When you reach out to help somebody else, you're surprised that you open that door. Help me too. It's a two-way situation. And then you bring other little children in. You become, Jack Stones. Here's mom. Here's dad. Here's the children. Get that Jack Stone. Roll Jack Stones on the floor. Tell me a secret. Tell us about yourself.
I think today's children, a lot of them haven't heard of all those games that we used to play.
Right.
Jack Stones, hopscotch, all these different games that really involved everybody. And we had so much fun, and it was just hands-on. A lot of kids today are apps.
Right.
Or video games or digital, but we need to get back to those places of hands-on touch and communication. And I think it has a way of just mellowing out our mental health. Yes. When we could touch each other and up close and race. And
I even see in the schools the kids coming from PE these days, from the time when I started way back then, 30 years ago. It's a difference. Now the kids are like huffing and puffing and I don't want to go to PE. They want to come sit in the counselor's office. And they don't exert themselves and exercise like run and play.
Yeah.
And I remember we had one teacher. he was like, you guys, you gotta, when I was little, I run this whole field. And so he raced the kids around and they couldn't believe it. But these are things that they have to get back to, and like I said, the pandemic, this is the good coming out because we'll be able to do some of those things with our kids, hopefully.
So it's time for our something to sip on this week. So in something to sip on, I asked you 3 questions. And the 3 questions are related to your life as it is today, is related also to things that you've learned along the way. So the first question in something to sip on is, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy is the reset that I'm experiencing. Life before pandemic was like like you have a ball of yarn and you just roll it in it, and it's coming towards you and it's just getting big, big, big. And I noticed that work was getting, and in the month of March, we're getting ready for testing. We're getting stressed out about that. We're doing this home with our foster kids. We just had a whole lot going on, body-wise, health-wise. So the joy that I have is knowing that, to me, God allowed us to have a reset where at least, we still have those stressors, but it's in a different form now. And that to me is joyful because I now get to know my husband better. I now get to know our foster kids better. I get to know my child better. I get to know my new children, which are adults, but I get to visit and talk with them. And it brings me joy. It makes me happy because I get to know people better.
After these 31 years of teaching, my biggest joy was that light comes on in the child's eyes, and you have changed his mind. Most of my classes have always been the rough classes. But at the end of the day, the thing was they walking like soldiers. But it's not walking like soldiers in the sense of I want to be a soldier, but walking in the way that will allow them to do what they want to do in their lives. Manners and respect was given back to them. When they come back, instance about a couple months ago, driving down I-95, somebody yelled, "Hey, Miss Fraser, thank you." I'm looking at it like, who was that? The boy with down his Fraser came back. "Mr. Fraser, thank you very much. I made it." When you turn that child around, whether it's in the seeds that you plant, yes, we're doing it in modern time now, but the gratification we're still going to get is when that child's eyes light up and say, "You know something? I can make it. I can be something." That's my joy.
Our next something to sip on question is, what are you working on now in your life? What is your next big thing or next small thing or just something that you're working on?
We're working on our health. As you know, we've been in the school system 30 plus years. So I think now it's time to work on ourselves and do some self-care, to motivate each other to exercise more, to eat healthier, to juice, just to do those things that will give us a better quality of life as we move into our golden years. So that is what I'm working on and motivating my husband to work on as well.
Well, back in March, I was working as a substitute teacher. Now I realize that's not me available, so I'm going back and rebuild my dream again, to build Brother Fraser's ribs, to leave a legacy for my children. And at the same time, give back some of that money to help kids with learning problems like myself.
I didn't mention, but the Frasers are also the owners of Brother Fraser Ribs, which is not only a restaurant-style mobile business, but also specializing in retail sauces as well as seasonings. So that's very good. You all are working on your business and your health. So the final something to sip on is, what has been your greatest? Oh my goodness, this is my favorite question because I learned so much from my guests. I learned so much from my guests about life. What has been your greatest life lesson?
My greatest life lesson happened about 26 years ago when they discovered that I had dyslexia and I could go to college. But the greatest gift I left after God gave me to go to college was to graduate and lead a program at FAMU to work with other kids with learning problems. Helping myself find out who I am, what I can do. I've guided so many other children. And that's the biggest gift that anybody can have.
So, Mr. Fraser, you were able to earn a master's degree with a learning disability.
Yes.
So what would you tell other students who are just self-reflecting and maybe wanting to go to college but feeling like they can't?
Well, let's just back up for a few moments. First of all, don't believe what people tell you can't do. That's the biggest thing. When I stopped believing that and started believing that I can, I went to college at Miami Dade South on a wing and a prayer and a dream. But through the aid that I got and help that I got from Miami Dade Blind Services, I was able to find out that I was not a dummy. That dyslexia was a part of me, but it didn't determine the factor of me. And once I understood where I could go, my first A in college was like $1 million. And I'll tell you that I went to college with 3 beautiful children, Tabitha, Lisa, and KK. I went through life with them from time Tabitha was 2, Lisa was 1, and KK was 5 months. If you do what you desire to do, ask God for help, but remember one thing, He's not going to class for you.
I think my biggest life lesson is to go outside of my comfort zone. And I was a single parent before I married Mr. Fraser for at least 18 years or so before marriage, and I had my one child, and my main focus was him and getting him where he's supposed to be. But I found out that I had my heart could also love other kids just as well. As a teacher, I have reached out and I've loved kids, but now as a foster parent, and I've brought kids into my home, and I've listened to them, and I've trained them, and I've worked with them, and I've loved them, and just became a part of kids now. It's a life lesson to let me know that you can reach beyond, you can open up your heart, you can open up your home and make a difference in other kids' lives, not just your personal life and just deal with your situation. It's just me. I learned to extend myself, and that's a great life lesson as well.
I would like to leave this also with you, too. There's a program at Florida University to work with children and adults with learning problems. Check it out. I know it works because I left it there.
So thank you all so much for joining me today and talking about COVID-19 and dropping some amazing life gems. I am so grateful.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So friends, until next time, thank you for joining me inside the Mom Stuff Coffee Shop. Please go to Apple Podcasts and rate this podcast, or on Spotify. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, remember, you can always get back up again and celebrate wins inside the Mom Stuff Coffee Shop. I'm KK Smith.